everybody, and welcome to the August 21st, 2024 South Burlington City Council meeting, performing interviews for committee assignments. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Michael, you've been gone for a while. You want to lead us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 2, instructions on exiting the building in case of emergency and review of technology options. Jesse Baker, City Manager.
Thank you. So thank you for those joining us in the audience. If there's an emergency in this room, please go out the left or at the rear of the auditorium on the left or right side and then turn left or right to get outside. For those participating remotely, thank you for joining us as well. When your interview comes up, when the chair calls on you, if you could turn your camera on to address the council, that would be great. If you would like to speak at another time during the meeting or have a technology question, please feel free to message me in the chat. Otherwise, we are not monitoring the chat for content. Thanks.
Thank you. Item 3, comments and questions from the public not related to the agenda tonight. Are there any? Anybody in the audience? Anybody online? Raise your hand, turn on your camera. Okay, I guess there are none then. So now we will go with item 4, which is conduct interviews with applicants for appointment to city boards and committees for affordable housing, bike and ped, common area for dogs, economic development, energy committee, housing trust fund, natural resources and conservation, public art, and recreation and parks. And there was a request by Peter Gallerani to start with him first. So is he online or is he here? Come on up and have a seat at the table and make sure that the bright green light is on if you touch that push button. It just says push there. Hit it again.
Hi.
There we go.
Okay.
All right. So please introduce yourself and tell us about yourself and why you're interested in the Bike and Ped Committee.
All right. I'm Peter Gallerani. I moved here into South Village in 2015. We relocated our business to Burlington, which is a kind of small boutique engineering firm. I've been avid bicycler and walker in this area for the whole time we've been here. I'm on the Green Mountain Bike Club, and we do the Wednesday night rides. My wife and I both, ride the bike paths here. We walk in the area as well on the bike paths. I live in South Village, overlooking Spear Street. We watch hundreds of bicyclers a day go up and down Spear Street. This is a really great bicycling community, this area. I have experience with, not as a civil engineer, but as an industrial process engineer with looking at traffic flow in industrial facilities, industrial complexes. Like right now we're working at Hill Air Force Base where they're moving aircraft and components around with fork trucks, and it's an Army depot recently where they're doing overhaul and repair on armored vehicles. So we have a good feel for flow. And I think there are areas that, as a person who's riding the roads and as well as riding the paths, I can provide some insight into areas where these bike lanes and paths could be improved, where there's issues. Specifically, I can give you an area like on Spear Street when the new bike lanes were added and a rumble strip was added along there. It runs right square down the middle of the bike lane as opposed to out over on the stripe. So it's actually made it more dangerous than it was before the lanes were put in. There's as you go down Spear towards Swift, with a new development that was put there close to Swift, there's a diversion of the lanes, and you're actually directing bikers right towards that development into a narrowed area, and you're actually moving cars right towards the bicycles. That is the most dangerous place that I've seen on the roads around here. South Burlington does a pretty good job compared to a lot of other towns in terms of managing divots in the roads, like drainage divots and areas where there's pipes. There are a couple, one specific one on Dorset, not nearly as bad as like Shelburne, but those kind of hazards are really important to watch for, especially when you have things like the Wednesday night rides, where you have group rides and people are dependent on the person in front of them to point out hazards. So since we've been here for 10 years, I maintained 25 years walking and cross-country ski trails in Danville when I lived there. So I've been always interested in trying to support the community in areas where we had expertise. In that case, a lot of it was on my land and neighboring lands. So different than bike trails, but a lot of those cross-country ski trails were based on looking in old traces of logging trails and trying to clean those areas up. So enough of an introduction. Is there any specific questions you?
Have you biked down Swift Street to the washout yet?
A new washout?
The washout from July 10th, whatever it was.
I've gone down Swift Street. It's better this year than last year.
Well, if you go down, past Irish Hill Road, and you head towards Mount Philo, where Carpenter Road, between Carpenter and Lime
Right
Kiln.
down. I thought you said Swift Street.
Spear Street.
Spear Street. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all the way down by Carpenter and
Yeah.
yeah.
You've seen the washout?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty severe. I mean, it's like the culverts were like, I don't know, 12 feet wide, and they just washed out. And
We were doing a gravel ride with some other people and took the time to go over and look at that.
yeah, you didn't take your bike down through the washout to get to the other side, did you?
No. I just went to the edge and looked down.
It's a little steep. That's the kind of gravel you don't want to take your bike on.
No, it's on the edge of foolish or beyond. So
Have you had an opportunity to attend any of the meetings remotely or in person?
this here?
Yeah.
No.
Bike and Ped? No.
I noticed when I was looking at the report that you were looking for committee members, and I thought this was an area that I could provide, support that would be interesting to me, and perhaps that I had enough expertise to be able to support, as an added role in this committee.
And you think you have the time to commit to this as well?
Yeah, I travel some, so it's possible that once or twice during a year, understand you meet once a month, that I might have to, zoom in, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. Council have any questions at all? Or?
Just want to clarify, did you say you have or have not attended any of the bike ped meetings?
I have not.
Okay.
This is brand new.
Anybody else? Questions? No? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for us in general, procedural or?
Are you looking for any particular skills or issues that you have that you're looking for?
Well, it depends on the committee, and it depends on.
No, but on this particular
Yeah,
bike.
and you obviously you are a bike enthusiast, right? And with
Yes.
your past experience with maintaining trails, outdoor, so skiing is ped as well, so yeah.
I ride 3,000 to 5,000 miles a year,
Oh wow.
indoors and outdoors.
Oh, okay. How far do you go indoors? Nowhere. You go nowhere.
No, well, yeah, well, on a
You
trainer.
go nowhere.
Yeah, I was thinking about you meant the longest rides.
That was a
but-
trick question.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I hate riding indoors, so I don't.
you
do
should
it
try
much.
Ruvi as an app.
Yeah. You've cycled against my brother-in-law who's in the basement in South Village because you live in South Village, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you know him. So, okay. Well, Peter, thanks for coming tonight. All right,
Thanks.
and we'll be in touch. I think we're going to try and
You're going to appoint on the 3rd.
on the 3rd. We're going to make decisions tonight, but we're actually going to come in, in
You are
public
not-
session on the 3rd.
Just to be clear, you are not making
No.
decisions tonight. You're having discussion tonight.
We have discussions.
Okay.
Then we
Thank you.
come out. We vote on the 3rd.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right. So now, why don't we go with? Hold on, I need my glasses. So, is Derek Eddy in the house? Is he online? Hey, Derek, can you hear us? Can you turn on your camera and unmute?
He's there, but he's not responding.
Is he?
He
He's-
says he's there. It says he's there, but he's not responding right now, so
Okay.
he may have just walked away.
Okay, well, let's move on and go back to, how about Catherine Boyk?
So online.
Is Catherine,
I'm here.
hi, Catherine, good evening.
Hi.
And natural resources, we're okay. Right. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this committee?
Sure. I've been on the committee for 3 years. I've lived in South Burlington for 4 years now, I think. My professional experience is mostly in water resources, environmental education, and communications. I'm also enjoy hiking and birding and things like that. So natural resources is something that I care about both like personally and professionally. Is there anything else you'd like to know?
My mistake. I didn't realize that you were already on the committee, and I apologize. Sorry, but now we understand. So, tell me what you've enjoyed working on in the last year that has been of particular interest to you, and that you feel is an accomplishment. Or?
I feel like the thing that I'm most proud of is getting the open space plan moving forward. It was something that had been on our committee's assignment list since before I had joined the committee. And we like created a small work group and like started working on it, knowing that it was way too much for our committee to ever see to completion. But we were trying to get enough of a start that the city could take it on in a bigger capacity. And so I was pleased when that happened in conjunction with the Parks Master Plan. And definitely looking forward to continuing to be involved in that. It sounds like our committee will continue being part of that process.
And how about the Emerald Ash Borer ash tree program? Did you work on that too?
Yeah, I was a little bit less involved in that. Trees are not one of my areas of expertise, but it's definitely great to see that, you know, from a comment from the public that we received, our committee was able to do some research and get the city to expand its plan in terms of dealing with ash trees.
And what do you hope to accomplish, or for the committee to accomplish this next year? Just curious.
That's a good question. I feel like we kind of have wrapped up a couple of projects recently and are currently deciding what to pursue next. Something that I've been interested in is looking at environmental justice, and if there's anything going on within the city that's perhaps unfair to certain neighborhoods or certain populations. We've talked about it enough to know that it's not something that anyone on the committee really has the expertise to look at that. We would sort of need some outside help. But I know that the city is working on like an outreach plan to reach more of our citizens. So if somehow environmental justice could be incorporated into that, and there's any takeaways that our committee could work on, I think that would be great.
Great, thank you. Does the council have any questions?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Catherine, can you just describe what you do with the Vermont Rural Water Association?
Yeah, we're a nonprofit that helps drinking water and wastewater systems around the state. So Champlain Water District, the South Burlington Wastewater Treatment Facility, and South Burlington Fire District Number 1 are all members of our association. My role specifically is communication, so like our website, our newsletter, and helping with our training program. We hold trainings that allow water and wastewater operators to get the continuing education requirements of their licenses and certifications.
Thank you.
I just want to say thanks for reapplying, Catherine.
Mike?
Hi, Catherine. Thanks so much. I was really captured by your reference to environmental justice. Could you, and you said that the committee does not have expertise, and yes, that the city is doing this excellent outreach initiative. But could you maybe share with me your sense, basically having been on the committee and looking at this issue, as you've said recently, what are some of the challenges, or what are some of the things that you think would be priorities for the city to address within that category?
I guess I don't really know enough to know. The thing that seems like low or most obvious to me is certain neighborhoods that are more impacted by noise pollution than others, such as those by the airport. But I would really be curious in doing some sort of study or assessment to find out if there are concerns out there, either individual neighborhoods or certain subsets of our population that are impacted by whether it's pollution, lack of access to parks, trails, community gardens, things like that. It's sort of, at this point, I don't know enough to tell you what we don't know.
No, that was a good list. Thank you very much.
I just want to observe that when I was the liaison for this committee, Catherine is a bit understated. She's really, really solid member of that committee and provides really excellent observations, advice, and data, and has a really strong, powerful, active voice on that committee. So I thank you for that.
Thank you, Andrew.
Do you have any questions for us?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for reapplying and thanks for showing up online tonight. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Great.
Let's move on to John Burton. Is he online? Economic Development? Where is he? I see him. John, can you turn your camera on and unmute? There he is.
Hi there.
Hi, John. Good evening.
Good evening.
I just want to note that you're the former chair of the Economic Development Committee as well, and you've been on it for 5 years. Is that true?
Yes, since 2019.
And how do you feel that the committee is operating at this point, and what sort of accomplishments do you think they've had so far this year?
Well, I think the committee has landed in a pretty good place. We've had some drop off, but I think despite that, we've been making some good inroads into our goals for the annual plan. Did a fair amount of research in the childcare area that may not bear fruit, but I think it was good work. And we've been very involved with the Tech Hub request, submission to the EDA, and we're hopeful that at some point that bears fruit. So a lot of good things are happening. We're looking forward to having new people on the committee because there's a lot of work to be done, and we're very pleased that the City Council approved doing an economic development strategy plan. It's something that we've been advocating for quite a while, and it's great that there's ARPA funds and you all approved that to move forward with it.
How do you think? How would you qualify the commercial economic health of the city right now?
I think it's made a real shift in the years I've been here, and even in the years I've been on the committee, with the growth of some of these green technology businesses like Beta and OnLogic. I lump those together, as well as Resonant Link and Dynapower. I think we've kind of become a green technology hub. But it's something I think we need to articulate more to the general public and continue to understand the implication that has for our economy and our population. And that's in addition to our strong suits that we've always had in retail and in hotel and lodging. So I think we got a lot of diversity. There's always more to be done, but I'm very optimistic about the economic development of the city.
And what do you think are the challenges right now besides, I mean, and you can include them like housing, and more housing?
Yeah. It's going to be the usuals. It's definitely housing. I think we need to continue to embrace diversity and up our game in that regard. And that also goes for these committees. I think we need more women, more younger people, more people of color. I think that would help because our population is changing. And I think that's something that would be important to challenge to continue to work on. But yeah, we'll always have trouble with traffic. We'll always have trouble with housing. But I think we can do more to make that more tolerable as we go forward.
Council have questions?
Yeah. So hey John, thank you for your service on the committee. I asked the same question of Tom, and like Tom kind of appropriately said, when we said, well, what's the committee going to be working on? He said, well, that's for you guys to decide. You tell me. But I'd love your thoughts on, and we know the strategic plan is going to come at some point in the future, but love your thoughts on what are the areas that you think the ECD should be focusing on in the next year.
Sure. Well, I'd echo Tom. Obviously, we're working on your behalf, and you send us tasks, so we'd love to have more of them. But in my mind, there is a need for greater regional coordination, and that's part of why when the Tech Hub opportunity came up, I helped get together a group of people from around the region, and we met with Essex and Burlington and several others to talk about the Tech Hub application. But I think there's a lot that we can address in our economic challenges and commonalities. So I guess more coordination in a regional fashion. I would love to see us kind of continue to pursue our strong suit, which I think is scaling businesses. We've got a lot of great room to grow for businesses that are beyond that small stage. We've seen that success with the likes of OnLogic and Beta, but I think that's an area we need to get to focus on and provide more support for businesses that want to move into the area and scale up. And of course, the Tech Hub. I think the Tech Hub is very important. I'm hopeful they'll get a second round of funding. If they don't, I know they're working hard to find alternative sources of funding, but I think there's a bright future for us to participate in that activity. And then data. I just think we need a tremendous amount more of data to understand how our economy is operating and where we might be able to make some adjustments to improve it.
Anybody else? Mike?
Hi, John. Good to see you. And it was a pleasure serving on the committee with you when I was there. On the Strategic Economic Development Plan, which is a component of our city plan, what should people be looking for that to provide? What role will that inject itself into our decision making as we look forward in implementing the city plan?
I think there's a lot of important roles it can play. Number one is we don't want it just to sit on a shelf. We want it to be an active action plan that deals with the short term as well as medium and long term. I think it's something that can become actionable in various areas of city government, like taxation and expenditures and things like that. It can help guide some of that. I also see it maybe taking the role of coordination between the climate action plan and the city plan. Those two kind of came out independently. Well, the economy, impacts both of those, and they impact the economy. So this plan may be a good way to meld those two topics together tightly.
Any other questions? Elizabeth? Lori?
No, thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
And do you
Thank
have any
you.
questions for us, John?
No, I think I understand the lay of the land, and we're all excited on the committee to move forward with this next phase.
Great. Well, thanks for reapplying. We
Thanks,
appreciate
John.
it.
Can I have a
Oh,
quick-
hold
Sure.
on. We got a question.
Sorry, John. I should have thought of this before. We did ask Tom this as well, but do you have any thoughts about expanding the Economic Development Committee? It's one of the ones that has fewer members, and with the focus on investment in that area for an economic development plan. What are your thoughts on potential for expansion there?
Well, I'm always a fan of diversity of opinion, and I think we could use more expertise. We've got a pretty broad swath of topics we address, but people that have expertise in data, people that have expertise in finance and taxation, or just general people on the street that have an opinion about the economy around them, I think they all could have a voice and contribute. So I'm always a fan for a bigger committee.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are all the questions. So thank you again, John, for reapplying. And you're free to stay online and watch the rest of the interviews, please.
Sounds great.
Yeah, I think,
Fun.
I think you're required. It's like, yeah, because it's kind of like
Okay.
economic development, right? So you should pay attention.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all you do.
All right, see you. Good night.
Yeah.
How about next would be Arabella Elliott Rose? Come on down.
We're really mixing it up here.
Well, they're in alphabetical order. So I figured that's another way to do it, right? So have a seat. And this is for public arts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi,
Good evening. How are you?
I'm great.
We met at one of the meetings, right?
Yeah,
You were
I-
there, and that was your first time going to a meeting. So I don't have to
attended-
ask you if you've been to any of the meetings yet.
Yeah, I attended the July meeting. It was very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in the Public Art Committee.
Yes. Well, I've worked professionally in visual arts, promoting museum exhibitions and shows in art galleries in Europe and the United States. I have a keen interest in art and studied art myself and make art myself. And I've worked in committee positions and board member positions in charities and for-profit organizations, and also been a local government elected official. So I think I have a broad range of experience to bring. I think I have experience trying to represent the constituency and not bringing a private or narrow agenda. So I think especially with purchase of public art, it's going to be important to have someone that considers what the constituency would benefit from. I've had the privilege of living in some of the most beautiful places in the world, including UNESCO heritage cities of Bath, England, and outside of Assisi, Italy. And I've traveled extensively in the United States and seen some amazing American cities that have great public art. So I think I would bring experience about what the best of the best do in public spaces, and hope that we could, benchmark and be aspirational for some of the most beautiful cities in the world. I moved here a year ago. I came back from Europe after 12 years, and I could choose anywhere. And I chose South Burlington and wanted to enroll my kids in Orchard School and live in this beautiful place. And it surpassed my expectations. People have been so welcoming, and I would really just like to give back to the community that I want to call home for the rest of my life.
Well, I want to congratulate you for being voted Young Farmer of the Year back in the early 2000s, right? That's quite an accomplishment. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
And it sounds like you have lived in several unique and beautiful places. So, our architecture competes heavily with, European old cities.
Sometimes I get confused. I'm like, am I in Assisi or am I?
The best we can do is an H.R. Richardson, building on the UVM campus that comes sort of close, but
I really enjoy the architecture and people and everything about Burlington, so I don't want to.
And it says you're a visual artist, so do you paint or what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I paint, draw, and I sculpture in clay.
Yeah, great. Does the council have any questions at all?
Where does South Burlington rank on your hierarchy of beautiful cities?
Uh, I really like actually the new public art that I've seen around town, and I really appreciate it when I go by the electrical boxes that are painted. I have 10 and 11-year-old children, and I try to point out the things, and I really notice the little touches that we have, and I think that makes all the difference. I think art is a breath of fresh air. It's a blessing. It's an escape. It can nourish people, and it doesn't have to be ancient or expensive to really make a high impact. And so, I really like what you've done already, and I would just like to contribute to that legacy. At the meeting I was at in July, they gave someone shared some photos from a trip to Minneapolis, and they showed how there was mosaics on the trash bins and some poetry on the sidewalk. And those kind of things make me really excited. I think maybe just being, middle class, I just sort of think about what's possible and reasonable. And, I think just having poetry on the sidewalk is something we can afford to do and would be high impact. And so I hope in the new plan that's being developed that, some of the things that we know are being done in other cities we can do here.
Great answer. Thank you.
It's not hard to decorate our public spaces. Right? You can there are low cost things you can do, and there are very expensive sculptures that you can commission to be done if you have the money. But I mean, in terms of unfortunately, a lot of the recent architecture buildings that have been built in the last 10 years, there's a lot of repetitive form with siding and different sidings and different textures, but just like mishmash, right?
Yeah.
So we have to counteract that somehow, and I think our committee tries really hard to do that. And this new installation that's going in at JC Park is a testament to that effort and some money. So I see you're from Iowa, so I'm going to ask you: is your favorite Broadway musical The Music Man or not? And should I name all the cities I know, like Dubuque, Des Moines, Davenport, Marshalltown, Mason City, Keokuk, Ames, and Clear Lake? And if you don't stop me, I'm going to break into song now from that musical, because it's like you perform it in high school and it's like in your brain forever. So, do you have any questions for us?
Well, I have a lot of specific questions, but I think they're too geeky. I was wondering how it was going on the strategic plan, what the budget is, when those purchases are going to happen. But I guess those are all questions to save if I'm chosen. But I have all sorts of questions to dig into the.
I think the
meat of it.
questions are very good questions, and I think that says a lot about your approach to it. Can you talked a little bit about the role that art plays and enlightens. How in your vision does it work throughout the city? Because one thing I've moved here not too recently, also from Europe, and we chose South Burlington because it's bigger than the average Vermont town, and that was appealing in itself. And there are different neighborhoods in different sense. Can art play a role of tying the city together, which is one of the goals of our city plan?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Like when you were saying, how do we maybe take, two adjacent buildings and bring some harmony? I think that's really the opportunity, is to use art to try to harmonize things. I was just in Portland, Maine, and walking around trying, pretending that I was on the committee already. And then I went by some areas where, there was sort of an urban wall where they painted a mural on a wall near a parking space. And I think it's good to think about, what we can do vertically as well as horizontally, So I think when they talked about putting poetry on the sidewalk, that was really exciting for me, because that's how we use the horizontal space. But I think definitely as we look at new parking areas, we can think about how we could even bring art into parking areas, that are between two buildings. I think you're doing a great job with using things like the electrical boxes, and I've been seeing, the art that's on street corners is really great. But bigger stuff tends to cost more money, but to have some taller things are exciting if we can make a budget for that. But I guess I'm just curious what the strategic plan's vision is for if it's to quantify it or to try to have fewer, larger, more expensive pieces. I think they also talked in the July meeting about using fences as a location for art around a school, and that's a great idea too, because we know we have parking areas, we know we have fences, so those are locations we can use without needing to worry about purchasing space, for example.
Great. Any other questions?
Just say I'm glad you chose South Burlington.
Yeah, me too. I love it.
Can I make a quick comment on the plan?
Say what?
Can I make an answer?
Please.
So it's a good time to join the committee. While the committee has spent some time talking about envisioning the cultural plan, they're still finalizing the scope and breadth of that effort. So you may have the opportunity to put your fingerprints on it a little before it even kicks off.
Yeah, well, that'd be exciting. I've worked on committees in the past for RFPs, and I've actually worked as a management consultant for Capgemini, Ernst & Young, so it would be exciting to be a liaison with consultants that might be used.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for applying.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. All right, next up, we're going to go with, after, next letter is H. So Amanda Holland, again, Public Arts Committee. Amanda, you're online. Can you turn your camera on and unmute?
Yes, I can do both of them.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We can hear you fine, and thanks for reapplying. And you've been on the committee for about 2.5 years, is that right?
I've been on the committee since 2015.
Oh, since 2015.
So,
okay. Oh, I'm sorry. This number is your job at V-Trade.
yeah, when I put that in there, I wasn't quite sure how to answer that question because it was next to the employer. You know.
So,
But yeah, I've been on the committee for almost 9 years now.
okay. Sorry, I've got that written down now. What do you want to tell us about the committee's accomplishments this year? I know that there is an installation coming up. Do we have a date when it's going to be done yet? Do we know?
I do not think we do yet, but I know that we just had our meeting yesterday, and Alana was saying that she's going to be meeting and seeing some samples of materials. So soon.
Soon, yeah. And I don't know if the council has seen images of the sculpture that's going to be put up at J.C. Park. They're like black outlines that are sort of amorphous with different colored, panels in it that are transparent, and it'll be up at a certain height, and the sun will come through it, and then project colors on the ground and also be visible. It's a really, really nice, interesting piece. So, and what have you liked about serving on the committee so far?
Sure. Well, I know that when I originally joined, I was on this one, and I've been on the bike and pedestrian committee, but I'm not looking to re-up my service there. But I really enjoyed, for both committees, just getting to know the community and having an opportunity to play a part in, expanding both of those things. For the public arts, it was a really exciting time that since when I joined, it was the initial formation of the committee. So it was a little bit of the committee has definitely changed as I've been on it. With originally, it was just formed to select public art for projects in city center. And since then, there's been the development of the gallery space and these additional thoughts of being able to support and program art outside of city center, and really looking at how we can, make it more accessible, or either programming or also just art more accessible in other parts of the city. So that is pretty exciting. And I know for this next term, I'm excited to get to work on the arts and cultural plan. And I should say, if I didn't already, that by trade, I'm a community planner, experienced in land use, environmental, and transportation. So thinking of what I just heard and earlier from John Burton that there's going to be an economic development plan to residents that might be less engaged in planning and committee efforts. It may appear that the city is creating a plan for everything. There's, the active transportation plan, open space plan, parks and master plan, and the upcoming arts and cultural plan. But as a planner, I might be slightly biased, but I also see this as a really great opportunity and a wealth of information that these things will provide. Because I know some of the conversations we've had at the committee when we've been trying to place art is trying to, we don't have a system for evaluating where we would put them aside from knowing where there's public land or where people, where city properties are. So just having a more comprehensive lens for understanding things such as where there is currently physical art, who are the artists that are in our area, what are the opportunities, both, again, physical, performance, what have you, for those different opportunities, and seeing how we can enhance those both in our city and also knowing that, our imaginary lines are just that. We're also, the greater Chittenden County kind of region, how we can work and support some of those regional connections to really enhance our resources as well. So yeah, I guess in a nutshell, I'm just excited to get to take the next stab at this big effort that we've been interested in for a while.
And you picked a new curator for the gallery on the first floor here of City Hall, right? And that person is trying to put together a show now, right? I think, yeah, this will be their first show, right?
Correct. This will be their, after the school, sorry, scratchy voice. After the school, this will be their, will it? This will be their first show. It's summertime's been hard for me to keep track of things.
Yeah. So I've really enjoyed the shows that have been in this gallery. Just incredible. The person from Haiti, the artist from Haiti, had just an incredible, beautiful, colorful art, and the paintings were wonderful, and the other shows have been great too. So I really appreciate that, and I'm sure the council does too. Does council have any questions? None at all. Mike's moving forward.
I just want to commend your view on all the plans. I think you're absolutely right. We need to get all these plans going, and they'll create this interactive approach to going forward. So I'm all with you on plans.
Well, I definitely thank the council for seeing too that there was a need and that they will fulfill a purpose, because, especially as South Burlington now, I think Paul Connor quoted this, I don't know, a year or two ago. He said that once at that time, all the development that was permitted will be built, we will be a community that is an equal mix of housing types, of single family housing and multifamily housing. And that makes us a little bit unique in Vermont, but it also tells me, knowing that I'm a parent that's, with kids in the school district where there is a mix of people that rent and own, I do hope that we can keep some of those people that are currently renters as renters, and they find a way that they feel the community and the bond by having places where they can walk to, places where they can see art, just having that community connection so that they'll stay and become residents. So I think it's definitely important for us to balance out with our housing, also making sure that we're creating residents that want to stay here.
Any other questions? No. Well, do you have any questions for us?
I do not.
Okay.
But thank you.
Well, we're very glad you reapplied. Thank you very much. And I look forward to the next meeting. So have a nice evening.
Thank you so much.
We'll be in touch.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Next, we're going alphabetical. Let me just ask the question: if anybody online or in the room that has a burning need to leave as soon as possible, if you speak up now, if you want to go next, because you either have an appointment with a child that needs to go to sleep in the next 20 minutes or something like that, or okay, we'll just keep going. Nicole LeBrecq, Economic Development Committee. Is Nicole? Yeah, there's Nicole. Could you turn your camera on? There you are. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
and we can hear you.
This has been so interesting.
So good evening, Nicole. You're applying for the Economic Development Committee. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are applying?
I have been a resident of South Burlington since 1998. We bought our first house in the Orchard. I'm a senior vice president at PC Construction. I also serve on the governance board of the Vermont Business Roundtable. In my role at PC, I spend a lot of time, we operate in 12 states up and down the Eastern Seaboard, and I spend a lot of time with municipalities and municipal planners on projects that we are proposing on. And I think I bring a unique perspective for some of the things I've seen done really well that I could bring back to South Burlington. I love this community, and so it was really time for me to step up.
And let me, Nicole, I believe you gave the opening remarks at the SBBA meeting at the hotel.
Yes.
Was that like 3 years ago? 3 or 4 years, like right after COVID?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, it was
2000
right after COVID.
Right after.
I was here, so it was not 4 years
Oh,
ago.
oh, okay. So 3 years ago. Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
3
because
years
I
ago.
remember that. Yeah. So I remember that now, and I remember that you are the vice president of PC Construction. So just want to acknowledge that. I know sort of who you are, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, have you attended any of the meetings at all?
I have not. I read about the opening and sort of then did a little research into the committee and what it's charged with, and really seemed interesting to me, but I have not.
Do you know John Burton or Tom Bailey? Have you talked to them at all about it?
I spoke to Tom that night at the SBBA, and we have stayed in a little bit of email touch since then, but that's the extent of it, to be honest.
Great. Does the council have some questions for Nicole?
Nicole, I guess just interested in your thoughts on, how you think we're doing as a city, and how we can help and support businesses to make them thrive. I guess, share my own perspective a little bit. I think there's probably a fair amount of maybe redevelopment or, getting more out of some of the spaces in our city that are already developed, but interested in your thoughts.
Yes, I think that's absolutely accurate. I think there's a part of South Burlington has so many diverse little neighborhoods and areas, and I think there's definitely some existing infrastructure that could be developed. And I think if we were to look at, like on a much different scale, but some of the things that are happening in Manchester, New Hampshire, with some buildings that were, almost abandoned or certainly not being used to their fullest, and they're really being revitalized. They're providing housing. They're really becoming gems in the community.
Nicole, what do you think about our commercial real estate market right now, in terms of whether it's being used to its potential, or I don't know what the vacancy rate is on commercial space in South Burlington right now.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that, across the 12 states in which PC works, we have not built an office building since 2015, let's say, and that used to be a primary market. So there is certainly, I think, a fair amount of vacancy from what I can gather. But I think there's a lot of creativity and a lot of thought that is being put together across the country about what to do with some of that excess office space, perhaps. And I would just really like to be part of the dialogue.
I noticed that some of it has been turned into housing recently. There's a building
Yes.
on Kimball Ave, right, that I think in the last
Right.
3 years was turned into either condos or apartments, and they added a couple of sculptures out front. So public arts.
Right.
So great. Council.
Yes, and
Go ahead.
I feel like that building actually became quite lovely. I was just at a meeting at the Bank of Burlington, and it's really become quite lovely. And I bet you there's a lot of opportunity to explore more of that in South Burlington.
Mike, you have a question?
Go ahead.
Hi, Nicole. How are you doing? I do know Nicole.
Thank you.
Quick question. Several projects have sort of stalled out with labor and with cost issues. Can you kind of speak to your perspective on kind of where things are headed and what that means in terms of our own development?
Sure. So not to get too far into the weeds, but we have the biggest backlog of construction projects in our company's history, but we've got a tremendous duration, like it's just an extended time period between award and ability to get to contract because of price escalation, insurance, interest rates, and craft labor. Vermont is quite blessed in that we do have a fair amount of career tradespeople. They are aging out of the industry across the board, but we're working with the state of Vermont, the AGC of Vermont, New Hampshire, to create our own craft training programs. So what we're trying to do is get those speeded up a little bit. So if someone wants to become a professional painter, in 4 weeks, we're going to get them certified to paint. If they want to be drywall, it's 10 weeks and so on, because these folks have to make money while they're learning, for sure. So craft labor is definitely an issue across the country, but I feel like Vermont has a really good finger on the pulse of that. Working with the Vermont Futures Program and the Talent Pipeline, we're working side by side with the groups that are trying to train LNAs and other sort of service providers. In terms of price escalation, I should knock on something here, but it does seem as though we now have a handle on what that escalation is. So for the first couple of years after the pandemic, what was happening was people were just being shocked month after month after month. And I think now we're able to see the trend lines. So I think we're able to create a really comprehensive budget with appropriate contingency and escalation to allow the projects to pencil. The other thing that has really regulated itself is supply chain. So that, we have seen the cost of steel come down. We have seen products able to make it to the supply chain in the U.S.
Thank you.
Mike, you had a question?
Yes, a question. You mentioned the word budget was in there at some point. And there's obviously the budget is what drives this city in terms of this wonderful services it provides its community. And the last budget was passed by a very small percentage point. And do you have any sense in terms of the Economic Development Committee, in terms of guidance or roles of how budget, meaning budget revenues for the city, could grow within the city plan in terms of what our values and what our objectives are, but yet see more of that budget being generated by the commercial sector within South Burlington and less of a pressure on the homestead tax?
Well, one of the things that was driving me to this committee is that I have sat on several nonprofit boards, but I realized that we can't fix access to childcare or access to affordable housing without taking some of that reliance off of the property tax. And so, it's frankly, it's untenable to keep, for people to want to stay in South Burlington and be able to afford it. So I do think that there are some things that we can do to encourage development and business and industry. I think the Beta Technologies story is an absolute, the speed to market that the city was able to enable for them to start building. And now they want to bring their other vendors and suppliers that supply the products for them to South Burlington. We talk often that sometimes I think some of the most well-intentioned regulation on the state level has just maybe surpassed its useful life or needs to be looked at to allow some of that real innovation and industry and sort of industrial spirit to come back.
Lori, any questions?
I'm all set. Thank you very much, Nicole.
Okay. Anybody else? No. Do you have any questions for us, Lori? Nicole, sorry. That's Lori.
Sorry. I don't believe so. No, I don't.
And you have the time to dedicate to the one meeting a month and whatever other networking has to happen. Are you part of the GBIC, by the way?
I am not.
You know, okay.
I am not.
Just curious.
We are we're chamber members, and we are SBBA and BBA and Vermont Business Roundtable, but we are not GBIC. I'm not in the GBIC.
Well, thank
Yes,
you.
I do have the time.
Yeah.
I do travel somewhat for work, but I'm assuming there is a Zoom option for some of the off-schedule meetings. But I'm pretty available.
You can join remote. Lee.
Yes, great. Yes.
Well, thank you very much for applying. Appreciate it. And we will see you at the mixer.
Yes, you will.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks
you
so much. Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So next is Joshua Minot for Bike and Ped. Come on down, Joshua.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening. So you are not on the committee right now, right?
Yeah, I'm new face.
You are?
No, new face. I'm
Okay.
not, yeah.
So tell us about yourself and exactly how many miles a month that you bike and where you
Not
bike and
touched
whether
the
it's like
5,000.
indoors or outdoors. No, just go ahead. Tell us about yourself.
Zero indoor. We'll get to that. That's the really fun part. Yeah, I'm born and raised in Vermont. I left for a few years, came back in 2017, moved to South Burlington to go to grad school at UVM, where I got my PhD in complex systems and data science. Now I work remotely as a data scientist for an insurance company. So serving on a municipal board really spiced my life up a little bit. I need some excitement there. And really, I think the risk of oversharing, part of the interest for me here is just thinking really critically about local government. I think it's an incredibly impactful institution for all of our lives, and it doesn't always get the attention and support that it deserves. We're incredibly fortunate in South Burlington to have, I know, a highly professional and caring staff, but there are only so many hours in the day, and I would love to be a piece of helping support that broader apparatus and getting things done. So whether it's just being an extra set of hands or eyes in the field, I think that's one piece of just supporting these local institutions. And also knowing there are folks that don't have the time to come here and participate on these committees. And I would love to help channel that sort of input into a committee like Bike and Ped. So that's sort of the broader interest I have in this sort of activity. And I think roads, bridges, crossing lights are very squarely in the purview of local government. I think we'd all agree that that's something we should be doing here. And I think Bike Ped just touches so many of our lives if we're fortunate enough to recreate outside at all in this city. I would say a pretty avid cyclist. I might have to back off that a little bit after earlier conversation. I kind of came into that during my residency in South Burlington. I was not really an aggressive cyclist in college or anything, but I sort of discovered that while I was living here. And that meant, I had that first feeling of having a truck on Spear Street really make you jump or something like that, or getting to one of the crossing lights on the coldest, darkest night of the year and seeing that it doesn't necessarily work. So some things like that I found really motivating, having gone from, a pretty novice cyclist to someone who I think can hold their own and one day will be doing 5,000 miles a year. Not quite there yet. I did, when I was in grad school, I would commute year round. I'd be getting snow all over the apartment. My roommate would be a little less than thrilled about that, about coming back from UVM. Now I'd say it's really recreation and biking down to City Market or something to get groceries. So I try and make the most of it in that way. And yeah, I think there's sort of a whole gamut of opportunity here, things I'd like to engage with. I'd really like to spend at least a little bit of time, if I'm so fortunate to serve, just getting my feet under me. But at the risk of being presumptuous, I would say there are some pieces, I mentioned the more pedestrian, no pun intended, questions around infrastructure like crossing lights. Being a renter for 5 years, I've seen some barriers there where it's great that we mandate bike parking, indoor bike storage in the zoning regs, but if that's full of bikes with flat tires that haven't moved in 3 years, that's problematic for some part of the community here, somewhat selfishly, myself included. But I'd hope that might be a novel perspective on the committee to see where there are people who actually really want to be biking, but there's enough friction points where it's hard to engage in alternative transportation like that. And I'm also curious about some of the more audacious ideas that I've had, and if there's any place for that. The east-west bridge going over 89 for bicycles and pedestrians, I think, is really exciting for solidifying that corridor that goes through East Harris, and thinking about how we connect Burlington and South Burlington. I'd be very curious to think about intermunicipal dialogue there and making sure that that connection goes really well. But again, that's a little bit more on the grandiose side of things. So that's sort of the full gamut there, and happy to answer any other questions.
So did you pick Quarry Hill to live in because the bridge is going to be right there for you to get over to the U-Mall and the Hanfords and city?
I could see it coming. Yeah, I know. Really.
And the committee meetings that might happen here, you know.
Exactly.
And,
I had a vision. It all came together.
So do you so you work for Mass Mutual Data Science? Is that the kind of activity where you're analyzing data to feed to actuaries, or?
That's part of it. I work a little bit on the underwriting side. So when we get applicants, evaluating their risk.
Yeah.
I do some fairness work too. We want to make sure we're not using variables that would, necessarily, they're not the sort of information we want to use to make decisions about applicants. And then broadly, just looking at emerging technology, how we use that technology, and also how we communicate with the broader workforce around it. So I lead some development teams on some projects. Work on some task groups on others. So try to grapple with some of these new and emerging hairy questions.
So are you going to bring AI to Bike and Ped?
I promise not to, unless if I'm asked very, very nicely.
That's the first time we said AI tonight, by the way. Just
too much.
That's the last time.
Yeah.
And the last question I have is, what is your favorite hill in South Burlington, or Shelburne or Charlotte?
Okay. I mean, I don't know if it's a little embarrassing. The first one that came to mind is in Underhill. So
in Underhill,
yeah,
the one Pleasant Valley Road,
the Lower English and Upper English settlement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because that's gravel.
It's gravel. Yeah.
Okay. See, I no obla gravel because it pops my tires.
That's very fair. Yeah.
Does the council have questions?
A couple of quick questions for you, Joshua. Have you attended any of the Bike Ped meetings to date?
I have not. No, I've reviewed some of the minutes, but haven't attended in person.
Okay. And your energy for serving is awesome. And I'm wondering if you have looked at any of the other committees, and there are other committees that interest you as much as Bike Ped, or if you're sort of focused in on the Bike Ped committee as your prime.
Yeah, it's a good question. I looked around at some of the openings. Again, I think the purview seems most intuitive to me. Again, municipal government, roads and bridges, really squarely something that makes sense to me and feels like we could make some real progress on. But I would be intrigued to potentially engage with other committees too if the opportunity were there.
Thank you.
If I get it to you, I saw in your application you also mentioned the importance of ensuring that bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure works for all residents. Mm-hmm. Could you maybe expand upon that a bit?
Yeah, I think the eager cyclists amongst us are probably getting our miles in right now, and I worry about those who may, when we're talking about cycling, be more fledgling, or maybe those who aren't even on two wheels in that capacity. I definitely see some curb cuts that look a little questionable if you were to be in a wheelchair, things of that nature. So I think there's the way in which we're interfacing with the infrastructure, thinking about, again, if we have accessibility issues and how to address those. I also mentioned just the renter angle to all of this. I think that's a perspective that's worth bringing to the table here. Just because it's hard to be a year-round commuter and really lean into that if you don't have the physical environment that's supporting it. So those are a few angles. I'm sure there are definitely more, and I'd be curious to engage with the community to hear the other areas where I know I'm glossing over and not even aware of so many of those perspectives. But yeah, those are two of them at least.
So I think you're a terrifically strong applicant. And we, as a city, are incredibly blessed to have such a great community that's willing to volunteer for all these positions. We happen to have an oversubscription for this particular committee, and without, saying anything about who or may not or what we may do, just to follow up on my colleague's question there, would you consider, for instance, joining the Energy Committee, which does focus to some extent on transportation, in terms of one of the platforms in the climate action plan that we need to address to reduce emissions? Would that at all interest you? If
Yeah, definitely. I would want to learn a little bit more. I promise not to inject AI into any of these things, but if there is that potential benefit, I'm happy to bring that skill set to the table too. I don't know if that's part of the fit you're maybe alluding to, but very open to the conversation at least. I don't know if we need to decide right now.
no. Okay. So at the moment, bike ped is where you want to be considered, and we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
that's
happy to offline maybe talk about other
Yeah, sure.
opportunities if it shakes
So
out.
then let me just maybe just follow up on a couple of things that you said in your application. You spoke about exploring opportunities to support bicyclists who do not own single-family homes, and also to identify high-impact areas for infrastructure expansion. So I'm wondering if you have thoughts at this point about either of those, like how we might, as a city, support folks that live in multifamily homes, or what you think are the high impact areas that we could use some more infrastructure. And if you don't, I understand, because you're not on the committee yet. But if you had any thoughts like that, I'd appreciate hearing them.
I'm so glad you asked. I feel like it gives me license to jam on something I may not be the most qualified to discuss. But on the single family home piece, I think, just to expand on this piece I was talking about with zoning regulations, it's great that we mandate indoor bicycle storage. But again, I don't know if there's a way. Enforcement is a very strong word that I don't necessarily want to jump to use, but just to ensure that that infrastructure that's being mandated in regulations is actually being put to good use, and that it's of a sufficient volume and supply to really have the impact. Just counting buildings I've been to, usually if you have a roommate, somebody's bike is sleeping outside. So, that's not a great situation to be in. So that's one piece. And, I don't think it'd be terribly controversial to say, Spear Street, maybe we should expand the bike path, the multi-use path a little bit there to Songbird. Again, I don't know the broader infrastructure complications there and where the best use of funding would be. But those are
that
two
is
pieces.
In the works.
Yeah. I've heard some dialogue. Yeah. And frankly, like my pipe dream is thinking about how do we interface with Burlington more too. Don't get me wrong, South Burlington has a lot of great things to offer, and many days I never want to leave, but sometimes you do have to go down the street, and having some sort of protected bicycle infrastructure connecting the two cities, I think would just be so powerful, especially given the major capital expense going on with the bridge right now, and just making sure that really branches out and catalyzes the sort of bike transformation that could be possible, rather than just dumping people right out on the street and things of that nature. So that's the sort of thing I've been thinking about, at least.
Thank you. Can I go back to your comment about people that rent, right, and improper bicycle storage? I follow the Facebook group BTV Stolen Bike Recovery, right, and there are a ton of people who have bikes stolen from their porches. UVM new students, right, who don't use, U-locks or heavy duty chain locks, right? Or people live in condos and they have them in a wooden storage area that's with a screened in area with a light lock that gets busted up. So, as a renter, do you have thoughts about a better way to ensure that bikes are secured? So if a new rental building is constructed, are there ways that the bicycle storage area should be constructed to make it more theft proof, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I will say I have had my bike stolen from a South Burlington property. That was a rough one, and it made it impossible to commute for a while by bike. So it does seem like newer buildings are prioritizing visibility and lighting. You know, it's not in the back corner of the parking garage, or maybe you have a lot of time to do something with some tools. I think enclosed bike storage cages seem to be growing in prevalence too, where there's some sort of credentialing to get in rather than just, you know, having it out in the open where the lock can be messed with or what have you. I think things of that nature are great. I'm hesitant to be overly prescriptive with all of this, but I think the more we can incentivize that. And the other piece here is the housing market's so tight that you don't really have a lot of power as a renter to say this bike infrastructure is the make or break reason to leave this place. You know, I think this is a good time for the city to maybe put its thumb on the scale where appropriate to help incentivize some of these things.
Yeah, but our planning commission constructs the LDRs, and they govern the rules about, you know, for building those types of buildings, right? And and we've just you know, talked about changing the charging vehicle infrastructure and making it more strict than what the state requires, right? So this is another opportunity to get another voice in there to say, I don't think my bike is safe in a screened-in cage where there's no concrete mounted steel tube that I can, you know, kryptonite lock my bike to at night, and I worry about it. So that's why I'm going to bring up in my apartment. I've got 2 snow-covered bikes in the hallway and two roommates that are not happy. So, any other questions? No. You have any questions for us? Oh, go ahead. Oh.
Did you, as the person at the table responsible for implementation and overseeing staff, did you by any chance see our data manager job posting?
I did.
I may be sending something your way tomorrow.
But you could still be on the committee.
Double dipping.
So you've read some minutes. Did you have any other questions for us?
Maybe this is too open-ended, but I'm curious, especially with these advisory committees, if there's just a quick case where there's been a real success story, or maybe even just a high-level kind of model of interacting with them that's been really useful in your eyes, and sort of just the committee, the council's view.
They've identified, you know, the areas that need bike paths or have pushed for you know, improvements to bike paths, identified bike paths that need maintenance, and some of those projects take time, right? They take funding, and then they take engineering and design time, and then they finally, you know, start to go into construction. So there's a bunch of stuff it's you know, in play right now, but a lot of those have been pushed by their priority list through us. So
I can just identify a win very recently. So the Bike Ped Committee was kind of principally instrumental in getting our greenway installed from Elson Parkway through Prouty to the middle school and high school. So they really designed it, conceived of it, designed it, pushed it, and helped implement it. And now it's active for students. It's a demonstration at this point. We'll see how it works and see whether some of the temporary, you know, what do they call it, neck downs and other things should become permanent. But, you know, that's just a win, you know, in the past couple of days. So, yeah.
That's great to hear.
So thanks a lot, Joshua, for coming tonight. Appreciate it, and we'll be in touch.
Great, thanks.
So now we're going to move on to Emma Scholdice or Scholdice. Come on down. How did I pronounce it wrong? Scholdice. Okay. Long I. I'm going to put a long I over that. So good evening. Welcome. You are applying for a position on the Economic Development Committee.
Yes.
And would you like to tell us about yourself and why you want to be on the committee?
Sure. My name is Emma Scholdice. I'm 28 years old. I've been living in South Burlington. My parents moved about 8 or 9 years ago. I went to college and came back, and post-COVID decided to live here. So I purchased a property. I live in Bay Court, those condos, and I've been there about 3 years. And I'm in government relations in Montpelier. So I spend a lot of time at the State House, and I think that gives me a pretty good idea of what other towns and cities are doing. I think as Vermont's proven in the last unfortunate floods, even dating back to Hurricane Sandy, that Vermonters work better together to build back better and stronger. And I think working with other cities and towns could really benefit committees like the Economic Development Committee to try and come up with some solutions that are long term and working together to maybe see what other people are doing well and that we can do better in South Burlington.
Have you had a chance to attend any of their meetings?
I have not. I've read through some of the minutes and I've talked to Tom Bailey. He's given me the rundown and given me some information on what they've been working on. So I have a loose understanding, but would be interested to dive in once we.
And you know how often they meet, and you have time for that?
Yeah.
Usually it start at 5:30, something like that. Yeah. But you can also attend remotely. What do you think are some of the economic development challenges right now for our city?
Well, I think Vermont as a whole, and you can see it in South Burlington as well, is there's not a lot of young people coming, staying, living, raising families anymore. Vermont's an aging state, as we all know, unfortunately. And I would like to find ways that, people I went to high school with, people that I know to come and stay. And how can we grow South Burlington to make it appeasing for people to come? I think COVID, one of the few things that came out of it was working remotely. And I think Vermont benefited greatly from that. People saying, I love being outdoors, and so they came and moved to Vermont, and we need those people to come and stay. So economic development in that sense is something that I'm very keen to, and that I would like to work on. If just as getting more people my age in the area would be nice. And then in terms of economic development, I think Vermont's done a good job, and I think South Burlington has as well, as attracting business. And as we've talked about on Logic and Beta and all of these really great technology companies, that Vermont is a really great place to come. But I worry that there's no housing for some of these executives or even sales level jobs to live and to buy a house. There's not much on the market. And so, of course, as it is everywhere else in the state, housing is a huge issue. And that type of working together to get all of these things to be improved, just a little bit here and there, I think is really, really important. And as we've talked about, there are many buildings that are sitting open that I don't know if they need to be demolished, or could we rehab them and save? As we know, there's the cost of building is extremely high. Is there a way we can help to remake those buildings and give them a new life and give them a new facelift? Things of that nature, I think, could really, really benefit South Burlington.
I mean, we have gone through several rehabilitation, recyclings of commercial real estate. I mean, some good examples were across from the Panera, right? So that's Joe Larkin's development, and that's going to increase as well. And then we're looking very much forward to the replacement of the very colorful Pizza Hut and accompanying gas station, so that they will turn into two commercial establishments and some housing behind it, right?
Yes. Yep.
After a very long delay.
Yes. Yep.
And there are other places, and of course, at the end of Dorset Street, there's a new hotel, a suite type building there. Right? So, and I mean, it's interesting watching the recycling going on, especially with the Homewood Suites, right?
Yeah.
In 2017, I think that was, and also the CVS replacing the old Friendlies, which was the Howard Johnson's before that, for those of you who used to eat there 24 hours a day, and Friday was all fish. All you could eat fish, right?
I will say that Pizza Hut gas station corner is something that I drive by every day to get to work.
You do.
And it's been a motivator to get involved in my city, because I find that you can't complain if you're not going to do anything about it.
What kind of government affairs do you work with in Montpelier? Do you go to Montpelier every day?
I go to Montpelier about 18 to 20 weeks a year.
Okay.
I'm a private contract lobbyist.
Oh, okay.
And I work for a family business.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you have a lot of exposure to state policy and...
Yes, I have lots of exposure. And I think when Tom mentioned the ARPA funding, he thought that I would be a good ally, because I have had to read a lot of those applications. As one example, I represent the Vermont Dairy Producers Alliance, which is a group of dairy producers. that is ever dwindling, unfortunately, but they're all over the state, and helping them receive ARPA funding and any sort of business funding I've worked with them on, as well as even this flooding, to try and help them get any help because of the massive flooding to any of their fields, and as well as last year.
And do you have connections with our state reps and state senators very much?
Yeah, I know who they all are, and we have lunch together. It's my job to know all of them and chat with them.
Yep.
And, yes.
Great. Any questions from the counselors?
I'm just curious. You work with the dairy farmers. What other groups do you advocate for?
We are private contract lobbyists, which means we can choose who we work for, and I do absolutely no federal lobbying. So I am no help on the federal aspect, except for the ARPA type of things. I also represent the Vermont Optometrist Association. I represent the Clerks and Treasurers Association. So I know our past clerk Donna very well. She's a very wonderful woman. And there's about 13, give or take, that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Emma, I have a quick question, and this is not the developer will make these decisions and make proposals eventually, but as somebody who left and kind of came back to South Burlington, what would your vision be for the U Mall area?
It's funny. I am getting married in October, and that was another motivator for me because I wanted to raise a family in South Burlington with my fiance. And shopping is near impossible. Shopping for gifts, shopping for shoes, shopping for anything. We have the Target, which is great, but now that the college kids are coming back, it's really all about the college dorm. That's what they have in the Target. And I just think in-person shopping is coming back. They're seeing nationwide. And I think it is quite a big lot, as we can see. There's been RVs there that they're trying to sell. It's a massive lot, and there's lots of opportunity. I could see some shopping. I mean, there's a world in which there's some housing. I grew up in Rutland originally, and I don't know if anyone knows the Diamond Run Mall. It's on the other end of town. That one has been looked into for actually college housing dorms, because it's actually easy to kind of set up and rehab that facility. That fell through because of funding, and Castleton has had some trouble with funding, I believe, but something of that nature. And again, it's a big lot. That Hannaford, the Party City, we're very lucky to have that. And there's parking there, which is something that South Burlington does very well, is parking. And I think other neighboring cities and towns could do better. But we are very lucky to have that in this area.
Two questions. I mean, one of the goals, obviously, of economic development, besides creating opportunities for people and revenues for the city, is as you said, to create the possibility for a young person to come. We are a grain state, and that's just going to become an increasing challenge if we don't. You came back. As you look at a vision of development, what would that generation need to see? What are the things that, if you say an economic development for a more senior person, may be different than a generation? That'd be one question. And the other question is, you mentioned, I think, true, is that none of us live in a sort of a vacuum. We're all integrated. We all like to have our own independent communities. But when you talk about an economic space, it's really ultimately integrated. You said you've got a good view of the Vermont. Have you any examples of where neighboring communities have found a way to work together to stimulate economic development?
Yeah. So your first question, what my generation would like to see. And I think, South Burlington is so fortunate because I love South Burlington and I can't imagine living anywhere else. And I choose to commute to Montpelier. I don't mind the drive because it's a beautiful drive. I love the foliage. I like being able to get out and do all of the events that I want to do in Vermont. I love Vermont. My family is long-term in Vermont, so it was never an option. I always wanted to come back, and I think I'm a little bit of an anomaly in that sense, but I think my generation just needs to see more development in terms of, entertainment, as well as I think we have a really great school district, and that is something that is truly amazing to think about when raising a family. And I think the incorporation of the schools in this city have been great with, knowing when the sports are and when we can go. And it's really feels very like a tight knit city, and it's a pretty big city. That's something that I think will bring people. I just think we need a little bit more development. And obviously, as it's, if you say it once, you say it 100 million times, housing. I'm in a condo now and I'm very fortunate, but the thought of raising a family, we need to find a home, and that's going to be a long-term goal for ours. And so we want to be in South Burlington, and it's limiting. And I think our generation is slower to buy houses than the older generations. That's also, there's that like divide of older generation not moving out of their big homes and us not being able to move in. I could go on forever because of my background. But, and then your other question was
about communities that have been able
Yes.
to, instead of focusing themselves, work across community lines or municipal lines to help stimulate economic development.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I worked with the Clerks and Treasurers Association, and during COVID, we worked with open meeting law and how to do this. And our clerks, I was able to bring them in to explain to the senators and legislators about what they're doing in South Burlington isn't what needs to be going on in Underhill. Or even a very small town or city doesn't maybe need all this technology, and maybe they don't need as much funding as maybe South Burlington does, because South Burlington has a bigger stage and a bigger facility and has more needs than the next. So that's an example of where you cannot use a blanket approach. You need to be able to use and pivot and talk to other people to see what they need. Especially with town clerks, the open meeting law and storage of how long you hold on to it. Some of these small towns cannot store all of that for the 90 days or the year that they were initially proposing. And I think that's just like a very basic example.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Thank you, Emma, for applying. And I love your energy and passion as a younger person in this community. It's really, really awesome. Given that perspective, in your application, you talk about how to ensure we have a thriving community, we need a balanced retail dining business, and we need to balance retail dining business and housing development. And you say achieving this balance is a reason that you want to join the committee. So I'm wondering where you think perhaps we're off balance now, or what where would you see a rebalancing happening?
Yeah, so I think the housing, and I know I've said it so many times, but the housing is a problem. We want to bring people here. We don't want to bring them out. When I was initially looking to buy, my dad begged me to find a duplex in Richmond. And I was alone. It was just post-COVID, and I just couldn't bear living that far out of the city. Now living in South Burlington, it's the perfect mix, right? Of a little bit of city, and we have some great dining establishments, but you still do find yourself going into Burlington for things. And I wish we didn't have to for so many things. South Burlington is very big, and it's actually, when you look at the lines of South Burlington, it's massive compared to Vermont. And I just think spreading things out a little bit more in terms of like restaurants and spreading them out across like Shelburne Road. Vermont has a lot of really great tourism traffic up Route 7 from the state. That's usually like the picturesque leaf peepers. So spreading it out there and getting that, as well as maybe finding some more restaurants that by the airport that could like draw people away from the airport and draw them more into South Burlington, versus I think people just automatically go downtown. Like, how could we draw them more to South Burlington and not down Main Street? Things of like that type of spreading it out and just making it more balanced, because of, I think actually one of our best balances is grocery stores. Our grocery stores are really nicely placed out, but sometimes coming to Trader Joe's takes you 35 minutes. How do we spread it out, and how do we make things easier for people to get around to commute, whether it's via bike or other ways?
I'd love to see more restaurants. If you could help with that,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
What-
it is hard to go downtown for restaurants.
What kind of housing you think we need?
So in Vermont, we're seeing a big issue of people like my parents who are in a home that is quite large for them. And if they're not allowing the space for my generation to move into and have a family in that generation. I am by no means implicating that we should be pushing people out of their homes, but we are saying across Vermont that that's a problem. I think any housing is good housing right now. I think there's a need for short term, there's a need for long term, there's a need for senior residences. I live right by one and it is bursting at the seams from what I can tell. We would love to keep the older generation in Vermont,
Yeah.
but
Someone suggested to me that we can use some like a luxury apartment for folks that are, larger single family homes that want to move to a space where they feel protected with, someone at the door, and maybe that would free up some of those homes.
I think South Burlington school system is something that would bring my generation in.
Yeah.
And some are so desperate to get into the school system that they'll live in a condo until they find the next step.
Thank you.
Great. So thank you for applying. And do you have any questions for us?
No.
Okay.
I asked Tom a lot of my questions.
Okay, good. And we will be in touch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So next up, somebody named Michael Simino.
How do you pronounce that?
Michael Simino. If you're in the building, come on down. It looks like, oh, that's Mike.
Sorry for my
Good evening.
disheveled appearance.
That's okay. Sorry to make you wait. We went alphabetical because that's the way the sheets were in. I see you're reapplying to be on the Recreation and Parks Committee, of which you are an incumbent. And, please interview after 7 p.m. Did we satisfy that requirement?
And Tim, I think you should refer to him as coach.
Coach. Okay.
That's all right.
What are you coaching this year?
Helping out with the Seawolves
The Seawolves. Okay. Which sport? I mean,
football.
football. Okay. Right. Are they in double sessions right now?
We just finished double sessions 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Back to singles.
And luckily it wasn't too hot.
Well, it wasn't too hot today. It was a little rainy.
A little
today.
rainy, but I mean, it wasn't 90 degrees like it was 2 weeks ago, right? I mean,
Yeah, last Friday was
that was hard.
a challenging day.
Challenge, yeah.
Yeah.
So you obviously know what the committee does. What do you want to tell us about your recent year on the committee and what do you think you've accomplished?
Well, one thing that our committee is excited about is the master planning process and the collaboration with Natural Resources Committee. There's a lot of commonality with those agendas, so we're all looking forward to the opportunity to participate in that process. I understand that the train will be starting pretty soon. So that's something good. Long-term basis, we've had, opportunities to try to come up with a solution to our indoor recreation needs. And we're sober about, the likelihood of that happening in the near future, but if something got going at the U Mall, maybe there'd be a place where that could be part of a redo there. Accomplishments. We didn't have anything to do with Adam being hired, but I will say that Adam's, I think, has been a tremendous hire and a great asset, and the programming that has been done has been fantastic, and I think our staff is doing a great job, and our committee is very appreciative of the efforts that are made by a small staff, I think. A lot of communities may have a larger staff to do what's done, and I'm constantly amazed at the amount of effort that they put forth and the amount of work that they get done. So, in any event, I don't know about a list of accomplishments other than our consistent advocacy for the agenda of recreation and parks, which I feel is inclusive of open space in our community, and the importance of that agenda to the health of our community and society. That's kind of a big overarching statement there. Pick it apart if you would like.
How do you feel about putting pickleball at the Sears parking garage?
Sears parking garage. Well,
second level, third level.
No, I think that on a long-term basis we're going to need that parking.
Okay.
But there are places where pickleball is appearing. I know I was driving by Quiniasca the other day on my way to Shelburne, and I noticed that they've got 3 pickleball courts that were constructed there. That's a private sector deal, but that's materialized. You got private sector business park that I kind of see the market perhaps responding to the needs or the interest that people have in that particular pursuit, so that the reliance on our municipality and other municipalities for that measure to address that desire, maybe the private sector could start picking up the pickleball on that. So.
Council have questions for Mike?
Yeah, I had one, Mike. We've heard a couple times at a couple of the Coffee for the Counselors, we've gotten feedback on the conditions of some of the playing fields. Do you have any comments on that, and maybe your thoughts on how that can get incorporated into a master plan?
Well, some of our fields, inherently, if you go to Colchester, go out to Airport Park, they got sandy soil underneath all of their parks, and they drain real well. And, so when you get rains, they can be put back in service pretty quickly. Veterans is not like that. That's our major outdoor recreational facility. Farrell has some challenges in that area. We actually just kind of tuned up Patchen not long ago, which was another nice effort by Adam. We had a committee member, Oliver Pearson, who kind of took that on and engaged with the community there. So if you have enough money, you can do anything. But there are a lot of agendas in our community where there are not enough resources. I sat with great interest listening to the conversations with Economic Development Committee applicants, and any conversation about housing as well, societally. I think we've got to figure out a way to redistribute the vast wealth that has been accumulated by a finite number of people, figure out a better way of spreading, our blessings around. So there's not a quick fix on that. I know the way to have good drainage at Veterans is going to cost millions of dollars, and I honestly can't see making that significant kind of an investment because it's too great for one thing. I would like to say before somebody forgets to do it that Maggie Lugers originally recruited me to be on this committee, and couldn't say no to Maggie. So there you go. Okay, I'll do it. And came on, and I've had the opportunity to serve with a lot of great people And over time, I've come to see that the Rec and Parks agenda is not as simple as the programming. It's about the relationship of people to the land, and this is the open space agenda too. And people have argued, over how to use land and whose land is it and who's going to make the rules for a long time. But in a community, in a region where we are going to continue to see some increase in population, to have the attractive companies and job opportunities, retention of our young people coming in, we have to work hard to create collaborations that are going to allow for people to come here and live, but at the same time, not at the expense of the natural environment, which is inclusive of the parks. And I have passion for that. I've had the opportunity to be on our affordable housing committee, and I'm passionate to advocate for folks who can benefit more than they have in the economy that we've had in our country for a long time. So I'm really hoping that I will be reappointed and be able to engage and participate in this process for the master planning, and to provide everybody in our community with their share of the gifts that we have.
Mike has a question.
Mike, hi. Good to see you. You emphasized at the beginning the importance of the master plan for parks and open space. In your understanding, what is that going to bring to us in terms of planning or understanding, and ultimately, as you say, the key question: expending of resources. Well, how do you envision that helping us as you see it develop?
Well, perhaps the greatest thing that I see in my mind is that this process should be an opportunity for us to engage a lot of people who are not consistently engaged. But the same can be said for housing. Who's in the room when the rules are made and the decisions are made? And there are a lot of people that are often not in the room. And so, parks and our land, those are resources for everybody. And so it's a tremendous opportunity for our community to really proactively reach out to folks in all of our neighborhoods, also other stakeholders too, the business community. We have some commercial environments where maybe consideration of additional residential growth, which would then invite, the recreational amenities that you would like to see in those environments. So I really feel that it's a great opportunity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. What better way to do it than to try to ensure that our land resources are available to everyone in the community. Obviously, if you spend a lot of time going through a process, you're going to come up with a plan. But that plan should reflect, a real thorough level of engagement from all the stakeholders that live in the community.
Thanks, Mike.
Lori, did you have a question?
No, I was just going to say, being the liaison for the committee, I have enjoyed working with you and look forward to doing it further.
Yeah, we have a couple other great committee members that are, their terms are up for renewal too, and I'd look forward to continuing to serve with them. And one final comment, I'm amazed at the quality of all the applicants that I've seen and listened to this evening. So we got a lot of good people in this community stepping up.
In that vein, you said you emphasized in the master plan the importance of having a variety as much as possible, diverse views on how these resources of the city will be used in an equitable way. This question was asked about another committee, but do you think the size of the committee allows for enough diverse views on the committee, or is there space or room for a larger presence on the committee?
Well, the thought raced through my mind while I was sitting, anticipating coming up here. And so I said, okay, how many do we have on our committee again? And we are a committee of 9, which is pretty good size. But yes, I mean, there's room, and a committee of 9 is a pretty good size committee. So, but then do we have the diversity that we could use? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. A few different communities, different economic, template that people might come from. When I did go through my mind, though, I noticed that I was the oldest person on the committee. So if you want a senior on the committee,
I think all of us increasingly have that feeling wherever we are.
I can fill that role.
That's okay. We're going to be thrown out of our homes pretty soon, and you can sell them to younger people. So
Shoeboxes, Mr. Shoebox.
Yeah.
A luxurious shoebox with a doorman. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Don't start talking about housing in front of me, okay?
You have any questions for us?
I don't, but thank you for your service, and I hope I can continue serving.
Prediction for the Seawolves?
We've got 45 young men that are working their butts off to be the best that they can be. We've got some great coaches, and it's about turning boys into men. So that's why we're there.
Turning boys into football players. That's what it's about, right? Yeah. Good football players. Thank you. Okay.
Hopefully some of that too.
Thanks for coming. Have a nice
Thanks,
evening.
Mike.
Thanks, Michael.
And I don't. Derek Eddy's not online, so I think Megan is the last applicant. Come on down. You've been so patient. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure that in the past, having a last name that starts with a T has put you at the end of the list for many things.
As it brought me back to, the classroom experience a little bit there.
Whereas Barrett, I would go first all the time. I was like, oh, I'm done. And then, it's luck of the draw. Who are your parents, So thanks for coming tonight. I see you're applying for a position on the Affordable Housing Committee. Mm-hmm. You work for Ever North, and I read some of your background here, and it's very interesting. And I acknowledge the fact that you've seen some housing hardship at times. So that gives you a really great perspective, especially for the work that you've done and some of your accomplishments. So tell us what you would like to do on the Affordable Housing Committee and something about yourself.
Well, first, I actually liked sitting here this whole time. Housing came up in so many different conversations, and that's what really drew me to housing, is that intersectionality. And I just appreciate how it's on people's mind in all these different kind of arenas. I am 31. I have been living here since 2018. I just bought my house in South Burlington through the Champlain Housing Trust program in March. I live over on Queensbury, which is right next to the co-op as well, which is another cool model of housing. I started in housing basically when I moved here. I didn't realize how that was kind of my passion and what I fell into. I went to school actually for environmental science and looked more at like sustainable development, environmental policy, those sorts of things. And then I didn't get to go out of state for school. I couldn't afford to. So right when school ended, I was really kind of gearing up to try to expand my horizons and just experience a new community. And so my partner at the time and I decided to land on Denver, Colorado. It was a really big culture shock and really wonderful to kind of be exposed to so many different things. I remember having my first experience with kind of overt homelessness, like right in my front yard, and just being struggling with that reality and what I could do. At the same time, I was in like the U.S. Green Building Council's program for LEED certification. I was a green associate. I got a scholarship with them, and just started to participate in like little emerging leader one-off sessions around the city. One of them was like a tiny house kind of homeless community that we would visit and tour and just learn more about it. And that's when I started to really see the intersection between social justice and housing and the environment. And I think that's why I just continue to be really passionate about it. I started with the Vermont Housing Conservation Board as an AmeriCorps at what was then Housing Vermont. And VHCB, like that intersection of housing and conservation, that balance was really what solidified it to me. Like that mission just inspired me so much. I kept in housing, working for Champlain Housing Trust for several years as the resident engagement specialist. So I worked in communities, actually down the street at Garden Apartments when that first opened. I remember the ribbon cutting. I did programming there, helped set up the community garden that's there. And I did across a lot of properties, just different things in terms of community building, kind of trying to empower residents to feel connected. And, when people feel connected, their social support system's a lot stronger and they're able to be more successful and contribute more to the community. And that's kind of the focus of that role. And I did that for about 3 years. Watched as Monty kind of grew that resident services program, which is now a group of, I think, 10 plus people doing kind of social work in the community to help people stay housed, especially now as we see more people transitioning straight from homelessness into these units. It's become more critical that those supports are established. Now at Evernorth, we have this program called the Connections Program, and we basically do a bunch of different things to try to help our partners provide like the best quality of life to our residents. So earlier today, I was doing 2 different data analysis projects. One is on evictions, just looking across the state at what our eviction rate is, what are the precipitating factors, who's most prone to it, and comparing that over time. Really interested to see with the moratorium and things how things have dramatically shifted and what the results are. Also looking at the intervention of resident services in those evictions. Has it resulted in a different result? As well as a report on that transition from homelessness into permanent housing. I was interviewing some residents that have that lived experience to supplement some other surveys that we did and will produce into a report. So I'm not as much hands-on in the community. I'm kind of a step away, and I think it's really critical to have that balance, which is partially why I'm here today, is because I want to stay in the community and connected with what I do. Another component, I do a lot of support for those social workers, providing trainings, knowing what those needs are in the community that make it hard for people to sustain affordable housing. Non-payment of rent is the most common reason that someone is evicted. So we know that the affordability is a pretty critical piece of that. I'm also in a Master's of Public Policy program right now through Northeastern. It's online. And I use that opportunity to connect it to housing as much as possible. And so that has had me look more at, regulations and policies. I did a report comparing the qualified allocation plan across 3 states, because Evernorth works in New Hampshire and Maine as well. So that's given me a broader perspective on strategies, different advantages, and how people are doing things differently. And so I just feel like I just blabbed a lot about things, but I could talk forever about housing. It's like a very strong passion of mine and something I believe in, and why I've also, personally have lived in affordable housing and have contributed, continued to just
When is your
support
book
it.
coming out?
Yeah, I don't know.
So I really appreciate how close you are to the affordable housing, for the housing crisis, right? Because it sounds like you've been sort of in the trenches with the people that are trying to find it. You've tried to find it yourself, and you deal with their issues. You deal with people that deal with their issues, and so that's really critical, I think, to have that kind of a presence and experience on this committee. And so I appreciate you applying for it, because it sounds like you have a lot of street cred, so to speak, right? So
Yeah.
that's yeah, that's really great. Is Evernorth? Did they give a presentation at the town fair last October? Did they do a project in New Hampshire with a block in a residential block in one of the towns that had to be rehabilitated? Was that Evernorth?
I'm not sure. We do so many projects that it would be really hard for me to know one off, but maybe
I think
Jesse.
you may be talking about the Putnam block, and I
Oh.
think they were probably an investor in that.
Okay. Well, anyway.
If you have seen a presentation about nonprofit affordable housing development in Vermont, Evernorth has probably played a role in it. They are very
So
prolific.
they're up there with Summit, sort of, kind of.
Nope, they're more with CHT and
Oh.
VHFA.
Okay.
They're the statewide
We're like the
coordinator.
co-developer, co-owner in Vermont, but we mostly focus on syndication of the tax credit program. So we have a department that does all like pulling in the investors, a department that does development, and then me and my supervisor focus on the resident piece of that. And yeah, supporting partners.
And then after all that, you still would like to spend a little bit more time thinking about affordable housing with the committee. So good for you. Thank you. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm studying it in school, and I just love any opportunity to use what's going on in my work and in real life as a learning experience. And so I'm very passionate about it. I tell people not to ask too much because I could go on forever talking about it. But people have described me as like very engaged. That's just kind of my personality. So even at work, I ask a lot of questions of my peers to just kind of understand things more, even when it's outside my job itself. And so I think I just have that. I don't know. I guess you get a little obsessed about it, but yeah.
Does the council have questions?
I have a quick question. Megan, am I remembering correctly that you applied for, was it Planning Commission and DRB?
Yep.
And we talked about you coming back for affordable housing.
Yep. It just sounded like the perfect fit. So yeah.
I'm glad to have you back. That's
yeah.
the only comment I wanted to make.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been watching. I've been going on your website to be like, has it posted
I
yet?
just have, I'll just use the traditional Tim question. Do you think you actually have time for this?
Yeah.
Just-
It is something I have definitely considered. I think with it only being once a month with, some outside hours, that is totally reasonable for me. I benefit from my job being really flexible, and they also give me like volunteer hours to contribute. I have considered what if for some reason I couldn't balance everything. So for instance, I'm only taking one class a semester because I really want to be reasonable and also, have a life outside of these sort of things. But I am on several boards, and I think that if I was chosen to be on this committee and things, felt constrained for me, that I have already in mind, like what I would let go, and it would not be this committee.
No, I just say it because you obviously are highly qualified and would bring a lot to it, but you have an amazingly busy, but very enriching life.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and as council liaison to the Affordable Housing Committee, I'm thrilled to see you back here, and your energy is contagious. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate
So just to echo my colleagues, so happy you reapplied.
Yeah.
Your experiences are richer and deeper than many people have in a lifetime. So it was really just a pleasure listening to you speak.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
you have any questions for us?
Am I the only person that applied to this committee? I know that's like kind of a random thing, but
There is another, but
good.
There's another applicant.
I saw there were 4 spots, and everyone's talking about housing. I'd love seeing more support, more.
Can you fill 3 of them?
you have some
I
friends?
know, right?
We can have you fill 3 of them.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I don't have any questions.
Well, thanks again for reapplying. We will let you know soon.
Sounds
All right.
good.
And have a good evening.
You too. Thank you, guys.
Whoa, careful. I've tripped here before too, so,
thank
but I fell straight down. Boom.
Thank you.
All right, so Derek Eddy is not online, right? And yeah, there was one that called in sick, right? So Derek, do we know if I'll just write down no show and he was on earlier, right?
He was on earlier, and then you tried to call on him, and he didn't turn his camera on.
Okay, right.
And then dropped off.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so that's our list for tonight, right? And we did, but it was after the fact. The cutoff was.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ryan. I think we're in the same situation we were before, where there was a late application.
When I got back into town from vacation on August 12th, I let Andrea know that I was applying, and then I had 4 meetings, 3 about bike ped and a planning commission meeting. It was a pretty full week, so I couldn't get the actual application filled out until later, once we addressed some technical issues with the PDF.
Yeah. Well, I think that the rule is that you have to have the application filled out and with Andrea by the 12th. And so I'm sorry, but you didn't do that. This is kind of the situation we had last time too, where you didn't file by the deadline, and so you're not in our list.
It's a pretty soft deadline as Andrea reaches back out to people after the fact. So she's actually taken my application after the deadline in the past. And it's also, the deadline isn't based on like the law or any type of gatekeeping on democracy, compared to, like, for instance, yesterday, your council meeting wasn't posted in 3 places as the law requires. And so I think that's a different standard of a rule that it really matters compared to, using a deadline of gatekeeping.
So we have deadlines for reasons of scheduling things, and you didn't make the deadline. You didn't make it before, and I'm sure you had plenty of adequate notification that these committees were coming up and that we had the interview schedule and the date that we need the application by. So, but you can apply again in the future. How about that?
How about I take a moment for public comment?
We're losing your audio.
Your speaker's not coming through, Ryan.
Yeah.
May I take a few moments to speak about the Bike Ped Committee?
No, because we have to go into executive session and consider these appointments. So, but I appreciate.
I know. When you asked for public comment before, I was unable to raise my hand because
that was back at item number 3, Ryan, and so now we're at item number 5, which is other business, and that's our other business, not yours. So, but thank you. All right. So next time, get the application in on time. Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Good night. We'll see you. So moving on to item number 5, other business. Is there any other business? How about item 6? Consider entering into executive session for the purpose of discussing appointments to the above boards and committees.
I have a motion. I move that the City Council enter into executive session under VSA 313A3 for the purpose of discussing the appointment of public officers.
Second.
I'm inviting Jesse Baker. I would encourage you to inviting Jesse Baker into the session with the council for the discussion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. And Sue, I'm going to give you a list of all the applicants by tomorrow, okay, if not tonight. I would take a picture, but it would be too low resolution. So, but I'll make sure I get it to you. Okay.
I can email.
That's fine.
Oh, you
Thank
have a
you.
list?
Yeah, Sue did. We can email you the list.
Okay, I just want to make sure I spell everybody's name right and don't offend anybody.
I gave her pretty much all the names from yesterday.
Yeah, I got yesterday.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. But yeah, if you could help. All right. Thank you.